I always recommend that people at least have an idea. Maybe you have multiple ideas, but you have one thing, one project that you're actively pursuing and investing time, energy, and money into before you join a mastermind. If you join a mastermind and you're trying to get out of the corporate 9 to 5 grind and you don't have an idea to be an entrepreneur yet, you're not sure what you're working on, that becomes a distraction and hindrance to the group because everyone's going to just try to help you ideate, and that's not what it's about.
Hey guys, welcome Jim and RT to Keep What You Earn. So excited to have you both on.
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate it. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. So I'd love to just have each of you say hello. I know our listeners got to know RT a little bit on a past episode. So I'll start with Jim, just doing a quick little introduction on who you are, what it is you do.
Who I am, my favorite topic of trying to actually explain that in a couple sentences.
Exactly.
I am living my best life using technology to make a bigger impact in the world. And it all came because I grew up in service. I sort of lost my way along the way of life, and recently just found that the more opportunities that I could show up and use what I'm so good at with technology to blend opportunities to serve people and help make a bigger impact, it just lights me up. And very grateful to have met you years back, Shannon, as well as be in business with this fine gentleman, Mr. RT Custer.
Awesome.
I don't know
RT,
if I can just hop right in after being called a fine gentleman. Thanks, Jim. Yeah, I'm the Custer side of Carter and Custer Agency. And I'm just a farm boy from Pennsylvania, trying to figure out how to navigate my own journey towards the American dream and bring as many people with me as I can. Started a watch company called Vortic Watch Company in college. That's doing super well. Having a blast doing that. Started an ad agency with this other fine gentleman apparently on the call, Mr. Jim Carter, and now we have Carter and Custer Agency. And together we purchased the mastermind where we met, which is Fast Foundations. That's what we're going to talk about. So those are my three main things, other than just being a consumer product entrepreneur, multi-passionate, got a lot of stuff going on. Anything with Shopify and Amazon, I'm interested and I'm in.
Awesome. Yeah. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today, is sort of what you guys are doing together while you're both on. And we're going to talk about the power of masterminds and how to get the most out of them as well. Because we all met in a mastermind, sort of in a various variants of masterminds. I know I was in a coaching program where I met Jim. I met RT through Fast Foundations, and served as a coach in Fast Foundations too myself. So I've kind of been on both sides of a participant and also seen a little bit of the back end of how a mastermind is run. And I think they're fascinating. So I'd love to hear in your own words, and I'll call on you guys so it's a little easier. Starting with Jim, what do you consider a mastermind to be? That name is thrown around a lot these days. How will you define it?
It's really a great question. And I would consider a mastermind the best kept secret for business owners over probably the last 100 years. And a mastermind is really what you make of it. But what it is you're bringing together like-minded individuals who all have a shared purpose, which is to grow your businesses. And the whole adage, you can always receive more once you give first, like give more than you can receive. Well, it's fascinating that when you get the right people together in the right rooms and you're willing to just show up and talk about what you know and be vulnerable and ask questions and give healthy challenges and think as one, you are truly masterminding. You are putting all of these collected minds together. You are helping to solve really big challenges. And the more you give, the more you do receive, because people start to understand you for your genius and what you show up as. And RT and I are actually the best examples of that. Not only did we meet in the mastermind, but we got to know about each other's specialties. And had we not stood up there, raised our hand, expressed what we knew, we never would have attracted each other, in the fact that he has qualities that I knew I needed in my life, and I had qualities that he needed as well in order for both of us to thrive. So the act of just getting people in the right room, asking stronger questions, and growing together is really my definition of a mastermind. And I'm only going to use the exact example that I went through. But there are so many different ways that you can mastermind. It could be overwhelming. That's the way that it's worked for me in the past.
I love that. I absolutely love that definition. RT, what are your thoughts?
The only thing that I would add to that is the concept of as the tide rises, all ships rise. And that's just, to me, the definition of a mastermind. And Jim, hit it from the other angles. I think perfectly, in that it could be anything from a Facebook group, like the trends group by the hustle, right? That's a mastermind of sorts, but it's a 10,000 person, Facebook group where people are posting their business problems and other people are chiming in to help, right? And that doesn't cost much money, but it gets done. And then from that all the way to massive companies like Vistage, which is the world's largest mastermind company, and they do 12-person monthly meetings all around that. I think there's 20,000 members in that mastermind group. And then in the middle, you have something like Fast Foundations Mastermind, which is what we prefer. And that's, a group of 50 people that meets periodically in person. I think the in-person thing is what works for me in particular, but there are virtual masterminds. And that the whole point of all of those masterminds, whether it's Facebook group or in-person meetings, is that as the tide rises, all ships rise. Let's figure out how to help each other. And like Jim said, the more you give, the more you get.
So what would you say, and I'll start with RT, what would you say is a good indicator, or when is a good time to consider a mastermind as a business owner? Because some folks may say, oh, it's too soon for me to join, or I'm not ready yet. Or, there's a lot of different obstacles to overcome to say yes to joining, especially a paid mastermind. What advice would you have if someone's considering, when is a good time or a good indicator?
Yeah. So I always recommend that people at least have an idea. Maybe you have multiple ideas, but you have one thing, one project that you're actively pursuing and investing time, energy, and money into before you join a mastermind. If you join a mastermind and you're trying to get out of the corporate 9-to-5 grind and you don't have an idea to be an entrepreneur yet, you're not sure what you're working on, that becomes a distraction and hindrance to the group, because everyone's going to just try to help you ideate. And that's not what it's about. It's like, all right, everybody, and in Fast Foundation in particular, all 50 people in the room all have at least one thing that they're actively working on growing, and we can, help each other grow those particular things. So my answer is, once you have that idea and you're investing time and energy and money into it, then you're probably ready for a master.
Makes sense. And would you say there's a lot of other types of or variations of a mastermind people compare to? So for example, I was in BNI. Are you guys familiar with BNI? Business Networking International. So they have it's a membership where you get together on a weekly basis and everyone goes around and gives a 30-second pitch about what they do and what type of referral they're looking for that week. It's very, very structured. And the entire, the intention of BNI is really to pass along business. So to refer people to other folks in their networks and expand their network. How would something like that differ from, say, a Fast Foundations? Because I know a lot of folks are familiar with BNI, and for me, being part of both, I think they're night and day. But I know a lot of folks would look at these things in their basic description and assume these are pretty similar. What do you think are the core differences between, say, a mastermind and something like that?
I can jump in on that one. My answer to the previous question, Shannon, was like, what is a mastermind? I really feels like it's what you make of it. And everybody's going to join different groups, different projects for their own intentions. We're not going to lie. Some people have joined Fast Foundations where their number one priority was business and getting more business, growing their contact list and trying to sell. For some people that works, and it's worked great. For other people, it's, just trying to be in another room. It's trying to understand what else is out there, trying to be open to new things. There's always going to be different intention for everybody to join. But the fact is, none of that really matters until you feel comfortable about the way that you're trudging forward with your dream, right? Because you can join all the groups, whether paid or free. You can show up, but if nobody knows how to refer you for what you're great at, then what does it matter? All you're doing is raising your hand and you're throwing your hat in the ring and you're saying, hey, consider me, pay attention to me. So whether it's people are going around distributing business, or you're going around fishing for business, or you're just standing there with your hand up waiting for business, it'll find you. But personally, I feel way better aligned when I can show up and just unapologetically be me. And somebody says, you know what? That guy is really great at that one thing. Or that woman over there, she's mastered this. You just have to go talk to that one person. And the fact is, you can do that without a mastermind. Countless businesses have. But it's not like I'm looking for a shortcut. But if I want to walk to the ocean and I'm facing the mountains, I would just love somebody to direct me the way towards the water and say, walk. And that's what a mastermind really is for me, is, thinking about like, when is the right time to consider it? It's also paired with like, well, what are your goals? What do you want to get out of it? Sometimes ROI in business is a driver, and that's okay. But honestly, for me, thinking about the differences between the two, I just feel better when you just show up, you are you, people get to know you for what you love and what you really want to do and contribute to the world, and business will come. So regardless of the format, it feels better to me. And this is always what we teach and what we're excited to help kind of drive in with our new community, is show up as you. And when you're known for what you're so good at, the business is going to come regardless.
I love that. Yeah. And how would you guys, or better yet, how do you think someone can get the most value or bang for their buck from a paid mastermind group? And this kind of two-pronged question: what could they do to get the most bang for their buck? But also, what are the key traits of someone who is successful in a mastermind, meaning they take away a lot and they get a lot? I've seen massive growth come out of mastermind groups. And a lot of really successful entrepreneurs credit the masterminds that they've been in to their success. So what are the key traits for successful participants, and how can someone get really the most bang for their buck out of the experience?
Yeah, fantastic question. And honestly, my answer to this is similar to Jim's, answer to that last one in this, or in the sense of, to get the most out of a mastermind, and the difference between a Fast Foundations Mastermind and a larger kind of more networking group like a BNI, is breadth versus depth. So in a lot of networking groups or bigger organizations or Facebook groups, you get a lot of breadth, right? You just have like hundreds of people sharing what they do in brief nuggets, and you kind of collect that and you can make your own Rolodex out of it and have a referral network. And that's interesting. But in a true mastermind, at least my definition of mastermind and what we built with Fast Foundations, is that we can go deep. And it's much more like group coaching, and accountability and friendships and partnerships. And the only way you can get to a partnership, like me and Jim, we met in Fast Foundations and now we're business partners in a 7-figure business together, right? That doesn't happen unless the answer to your question is everyone needs to be vulnerable, transparent, and trust everyone else in the group enough to share all their deepest, darkest secrets about their business. So I need to be able to walk in. If I want a lot out of this mastermind, I need to be able to walk into the group and I need to say, hey, everyone, I'm about 2 months away from running out of cash in my business. I need help, right? That's hard for people to admit, especially entrepreneurs. You've been there. It's like, oh shit, I'm not going to make payroll, right?
Yeah.
When someone says that in our mastermind and in Fast Foundation, and it happens, everyone pours in because it's like, all right, is this a financial thing? Is it a marketing thing? Do we need business? Do we need to cut your costs? Can I now the referral, instead of from like the BNI example that you shared, is like, hey, I do HVAC stuff. Can somebody, if anybody needs that, can you refer it to me? That's great. But you have no methodology. You have no why for why you're referring that person, versus that same person in a mastermind that allows you to go deeper and know that person and be vulnerable with that person and help that person truly, you can say, hey, this is my friend Jim. He runs a big HVAC company. I know everything about his business because he's in my mastermind and he's shared all this stuff. This dude operates at a level of integrity that you've never seen before. And so you should absolutely use him for your HVAC project instead of just, hey, Jim, meet Mike, which is the previous example, right? That's the difference, is the depth, the trust, the partnership, the vulnerability. To me, that's how you get needle moving activity, is you cut the BS and you go straight to the help, which involves a level of trust that, takes time to develop. And that's why, Fast Foundations is months long so that we can get there.
Yeah. And you guys are an example of that, to your point. I mean, if you hadn't been vulnerable and exposed the weaknesses you have, you wouldn't have found someone who could fill those gaps or could supplement or complement your strengths. So it's also kind of being open and honest with, here's what I'm good at and here's what I suck at. And I need help with this. And being willing to say that, because I feel like on especially social media and being out there and open, no one is really projecting that into the world and saying, hey guys, I'm 2 weeks away from running out of cash. No one's going to do that because their customers are watching. So I totally agree with that.
That's exactly right. And that's the power of being in a room like this, which is you have a safe place to be able to be vulnerable, right? Vulnerability is a big topic because some see it as weakness. I see it as one of the biggest strengths that anybody can have, because they're willing to share. They're willing to be open. They're raising their hand and asking for help. I had this conversation with my daughters the other day because my oldest daughter was like starting to get into, like, she's getting into middle school, and now she's starting to have those conversations with her friends where, like, there's a ringleader, and then, is she part of it? And there's these conversations. I have no idea what it's like to be an 11-year-old girl, but my wife shared a lot with me.
Yeah.
And holy shit, am I in for it? But that's that's
you are. I can attest that you are.
I totally am getting ready for it. But I was able to see this trait through my daughter, and seeing how someone can process it with such an innocent mind. And you realize we're all the same, right? We all need help, but there's a combination of pride and ego and putting on a show and all this stuff that we feel like we have to embody sometimes. But a group like this, again, just being in a room where you trust people, I can raise my hand, and this is exactly the story of how RT and I aligned. Is we had known each other because we were in Fast Foundations. We kind of went our own ways for a little bit, and we did our own thing. We both ended up starting digital marketing agencies, and I had started to find profitability, but it was crushing me because I just wasn't energetically ready to go all in on the business development side. I wanted to stand in other traits. And then the inverse was perfect for him. He was ready to hit it, visionary. He had all the ideas, all the ways to do it, and he just needed more help on the operations. Well, hello, I'm the engineer. I'm the operations guy. I already built most of that. So that's like one small example of so many times. And Shannon, when you're talking about what key traits are needed, honestly, it's a combination of putting in the work, being willing to fail and learn from it, and just raising your hand and asking for help. And when we see people who actually, when we were at the event, we even said this to everybody in Fast Foundations. We said, if we were to draw a line down the middle of this room and put everybody in the future who does the work on one side and everybody who doesn't do the work on the other side, just think about what that's going to do to this room. Right? Like, this is your new tribe. These are the people who you're going to grow with, you're going to fail with, you're going to stay accountable to. And just the more that you continue to move to one side, where you keep putting in the work, you keep trying, you keep figuring it out, you keep asking for help, how are you going to keep failing if you've got a tribe of people who are continually there to support you? And that's what happened for RT and I. We put in the work, we asked the questions, we were vulnerable. People made jokes about me being bald. You name it, you just get comfortable being with this new little mini family. Right. But the more that people fall in love with who you are and what you can do, the more awesome things are in your future.
Yeah. And when I joined, I kind of saw this as what's the word for it? It's kind of when you're like on a trapeze or something, or you're doing something a little dangerous. And it's kind of that thing that catches you, where I'm like, I'm not going to fall that hard. because I know I have this place to fall into if I do fall. And that was really important as I was growing. And that was when I really hit the gas pedal in my business and grew rapidly. And having that, it's kind of this chicken and the egg thing. It's like, did I grow because I had it, or did I grow because I know I could because I had it? And either way, it was a win. But I think it's such a big, important thing to note that when you do show up and you show up in that group with confidence and the vulnerability, that you really will get the most out of it, because you'll not only be memorable and make a good impression, but it will make an impression on you too, because you'll gain so much out of it when you just open your arms up and are willing to receive as well.
Yeah, talking about like the power of the safety net. Right?
Yeah.
So you can go for a big swing, and knowing that you've got a safety net, it's okay to fall. Like, you're probably going to fall, especially if it's the first time. But once you get better and better and better, you grow the strength, you understand what reps it takes, you know how to maximize your craft, and then you don't need it anymore. So like training wheels, it's the same thing. Once you ride the bike enough, you've got it, you just don't need it. But how many skin knees are you going to have if you just jump on the bike for the first time and you don't have anything to guide you? Mm-hmm. That's what a group like this can do for you. Because if you're ever feeling overwhelmed, God knows I have in the past,
right?
You raise your hand, you ask for help. And that's why it's curated by coaches and people who have been there before you. So we're not that much further ahead than anybody in that room. And we make that very clear. But we're really proud of the work that we put in to be able to be up there and to share the stories and just, again, not shortcuts, but just ways of thinking about it differently that hopefully will save you time and energy and effort, and possibly even save you from a failure.
Yeah. I mean, they're kind of like cheat codes, getting to what you want a little bit faster. But not exactly shortcutting, but I know exactly what you mean. So what would you guys recommend that somebody who's thinking about investing in a mastermind group like Fast Foundations, or really any type of mastermind, what should they consider? What should go into their decision-making process to decide to invest in something like that?
Absolutely. And it's a great question, Shannon. And we're actually going to include this kind of decision matrix information on fastfoundations.com, because we get that question all the time, is like, is Fast Foundations Mastermind right for me? Or is there something else I should look at? And right now, there really isn't a place that you can go for centralized, like, what are all my mastermind options?
Right.
And that's what we're building on our website, is to say, hey, this is what we do in Fast Foundations Mastermind. If this doesn't feel right to you, we're going to interview on our podcast all these other people that run other masterminds, and you can hear from them and decide, like, hey, maybe one of those is better. But I feel like Jim and I are kind of, holding this torch of, like, we just love masterminds so much that if ours isn't right for you, we can't possibly recommend that you join one, just anyone, period. But as you make that decision, the questions to ask are really about who else is in the group, as far as, like, what level are they at in business. And for Fast Foundations, that's you have an idea and you have some revenue. Typically we say, like, at least $10,000, coming in the last year or something like that. There's something coming in up to about 500,000 in annual revenue. That's what Fast Foundations is for, is we call them, entry level entrepreneurs. And then there's tons of masterminds for higher level, 7, 8, 9 figure business masterminds. And then there's lots of smaller options in the, most of those end up being virtual or Facebook groups or something like that. And we're trying to cater to that a little bit with our Fast Foundations online, or our Fast Foundations community that people can join at a lower price point and just kind of dip their toe in the water. But that's one question, is, like, who else is in the group as far as where are they at in business? And then, is the group diversified or not? Some people prefer industry specific masterminds. That's a thing. There's masterminds for digital marketing agency owners only, right? That's kind of cool, right? So you could do that. Fast Foundations is open to any type of business. I prefer it that way. I'd rather, I run a watch company. a room full of other people that run watch companies would be very boring to me. I wouldn't learn a whole lot. I'd probably pick up a couple things, but I've learned so much from Jim and his experience in just tech and SEO and all that stuff, because it's just totally different than what I do. So if you ask kind of those questions of who else is in the group, what else is in the group, who's facilitating the group, who do they know, right? Because it's not the Jim and RT show. Right. It's the Jim and RT go find people to serve the group show, right? Like, we're going to go find these speakers at least once a month and bring them in and teach on a specific topic. For us too, we learn stuff too. It's awesome. So ask those questions about who else is in the group, who else makes up the group, what is it all about, who's facilitating it, what connections do they have, how could they help me? And then, typically I would look at testimonials or reach out to someone else who's done that mastermind or a similar mastermind before, and just get someone else's take that or respect, or at least someone else kind of that has similar business problems to you, and get their perspective too.
Definitely. And it just occurred to me as we were talking, and I don't ask me why I didn't think of this. For those of you listening who are enjoying the podcast, you have Fast Foundations to thank for that. that actually, this whole podcast was born because I was having major doubts, major fears around, like, should I start a podcast? Who the hell would want to listen to an accountant talk? And would this actually be worthwhile and popular? And would people actually listen and want to hear me? That's amazing. And we're currently charting for the last 2 months in the top 100 in entrepreneurship in the US, and crossing over 25K downloads, I think, by now, in less than a year. And it still amazes me that I'm going, wow, all it took was enough people telling me just go do the damn thing and encouraging me, that really kind of tipped over the scale of, like, had me jump off the cliff, so to speak, and say, all right, I'm going to go do it. And so many people that I've met in these communities and these masterminds have been amazingly helpful, but not just in the value they give me, but also in just the, yeah, go do it, the encouragement, the support. And I think that's, that's an underrepresented element of masterminds. A lot of folks see the surface level of the networking and all these things, but I think having somebody that you can call on your team to be supporting you is just invaluable. And on that note, I actually want to hear from each of you on either an achievement, something that was born from, other than Carter and Custer, we've talked about that, but something else that when you look back, you go, that roots back to the mastermind group. Like, I would not do this thing, know this person, or had this opportunity if it weren't for Fast Foundations. Do you have an example of that?
I will say that it is part of the current company that we have, but the story precedes RT and I coming together. So I joined the very first round of Fast Foundations when Chris and Lori Carter put it together in March of 2019. So pre-pandemic, I was coming off of my last startup. I was starting over, and I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know what I wanted to scale, I should say. I knew that I wanted to build a company. I knew that I wanted to find a way to mix technology and do it for us. So kind of like how you mentioned, RT, like having an idea of what you were going in with. I was making money. It was barely anything. I was like, buyer's remorse when I hit the purchase button. I'm like, should I really be doing this? I had all the feels. And standing up and grabbing the mic and starting to proclaim what I wanted to do was one of the most freeing exercises and things that I could remember. And knowing that I was continually refining what I was doing every time I was there and I was in person and I was talking, not only did I get people who punched holes in all of the ideas and strategies that I had, which I needed, because some of them could have been potential customers and some of them were really representative of where the industry was going. But when the pandemic hit, all of my contracts pretty much went away. Like I almost ran out of money within the first couple months. And it dawned on me that I wasn't making, let's just say, like a pandemic proof business, or I wasn't getting prepared enough for anything that could hit me. And I was able to fall back on the connections that I made, on the accountability that I had, And even the mentors. I remember having an extra call with Chris at the time, and he just helped me get recentered and reminded me that I had everything that I need. And that gave me the personal drive, the personal inspiration, just enough to lock myself in a room with a whiteboard one day and reimagine what I wanted and take everything that I learned over that last year. And I ended up building the service that is now the most popular service that we sell as a company, that we have served some of the top podcasts, YouTube channels, and influencers that are in the market. But had I not had that support network, so Shannon, going back to your example of like having the safety net for the trapeze, I probably would have fallen and crashed and burned. And knowing that I had enough foresight to just invest in where I was going, even though I didn't exactly know where I was, that was the only thing, looking backwards, that has given me enough confidence that when RT and I came together, that we had enough foundational wealth of knowledge and team and the ability to kind of see through and then add in parallel revenue streams to our business. But had I not had that, we probably would have not gone forward with our, with bringing our companies together. So that little thing didn't even get realized until down the road. But once it did, I can't imagine being in this position today had I not had that support network. And like we're talking about with business, the more I talked about it with people in the mastermind, getting their ideas, some of them just signed up and were my first customers. I remember having one call with one friend she's just a good friend through the mastermind. And I won't name her name on here just because we're talking about it as sales and all, but she was just being a friend and she had a podcast. And I was like, would you buy this? And she's like, Jim, here's my credit card. I want it right now. Like, let's go. And she helped me build the process. So anything's possible, but you've just got to want it and be willing to put in that work. And it's a really fun way to think back. And that was only over 3 years worth of time, and I could short track that whole story to make it into about 1.5 years from start to finish. So it's really exciting to see how that is possible. Similar to you, Shannon, with launching the podcast. Had you not had that support network and that drive to push it forward, would it have ever come up? Probably not.
Yeah. Also, it was the FOMO of everyone had a podcast, and I was like, I want to be one of the cool kids who has a podcast, but I had to have meat behind it, right? I had to be like, this has to be like legit. I can't just do it to fit in. You got to make it make sense for your business. But yeah, my first round of Fast Foundations, my focus was building pricing and structuring my offers, building my menu. And I feel like I did that. And then my intention, the second round, was building a team. And then I hired my first 2 people. I always went in with like an intention of, I want to walk away from this with a team, or I want to walk away from this with a solid menu and confidence around it. And every time I walked in with a specific intention and really focused on that, it came to life, because I would show up every time and ask questions about that topic. And then everyone realized, oh, Shannon's trying to hire. And then anything that came up around, teaming or anything, they say, oh, Shannon, look at this. So I made it really clear what my focus area was. And I think that would be probably my answer to, what you also want to have going into a mastermind is a couple of goals that you could define so that you know what you're looking for when you get in there. And when you see it, you can grab the opportunities. RT, what about you? What are some of your like aha moments of, wow, this never would have happened without my mastermind?
Yeah, absolutely. So I love this question, and there's too many to list. So I'll pick 2. One is pricing, specifically charging what you're worth. And 2 is consistency. And I tie them together with, at that time when I joined Fast Foundations in 2019, my only business, primary everything, was Vortic Watch Company. And the year before, 2018, we were just shy of 7 figures, I think. And so I was like slightly outside the realm of where Fast Foundation should be, because it's usually like $500,000 or less in business revenue. But I asked Chris, I was like, hey, can I still join? Because like, I feel like, yeah, my business is making almost $1 million, but I'm making 12,000 a year personally. So like, can we look at my revenue personally, and like, how do I optimize this? Right. And that was, to your point, like my intent was, how do I get more benefit out of running a big business personally, besides obviously there's lots of perks. But I was just like, you know, a CEO of a 7-figure business should make more than, you know, 12,000 a year. So he let me in, thank God. And his feedback that I just asked for validation from the whole group and got it constantly was charge what you're worth. You know, our average watch in 2018 was sold for about 1,500. Our average watch in 2021 sold for 3,800. Very similar products. Obviously, we've increased quality since, but we're just charging what we're worth now. And then consistency, you know, everyone was talking about like, all right, I'm going to put out one podcast a week. Like people are starting podcasts left and right. And I have that same, like, maybe I should do a podcast. We're just starting that now. But, you know, I was like, what can I do on a consistent basis? And I realized like, well, Vortic Watch Company can only make about 400 watches a year. There's 365 days in a year. What if we made one watch every single day? And since June of 2019, we've done that. We call it the watch of the day, and they sell in minutes for thousands of dollars, because every single day I come out with a one-of-a-kind, unique piece that when it's sold, it's gone. And the mastermind, especially Chris, and just the energy that he puts out, you know, from a financial standpoint, and then having, you know, 49 other humans say, dude, you make the coolest watches on planet Earth. They should be 10,000, not 1,000. What are you doing?
Yeah.
And then putting out that content consistently and having 49 people share it and tag it on Instagram and say, dude, look at this, and sign up for my email list and forward the emails that we send every week, right? Like that accountability, validation, support system, confidence backed up my pricing. And you know, as long as I showed up and did the work consistently, I saw the results, and we've been reaping those rewards. We made Vortic Watch Company because of Fast Foundations. It became pandemic proof, and we not only survived 2020 and 2021, but we crushed it. Those were our last 2 best years ever from a revenue and especially profit standpoint. And I equate it all back to being in that mastermind and having that validation and confidence.
Amazing. Yeah. And it really, people are going to assume it's, you know, it's these strategies that you're learning, and, you know, you can get that from other resources other than mastermind groups. Right. But I feel like it's just so accelerated. A mastermind is your crash pad and your launch pad, right? It's where you can crash, but it's also where you can take off from. Sometimes simultaneously. I feel like I crash into it and then I launch like the next day. I'm like all amped up, right, guys? Like, you have like the most vulnerable moment ever, and then the next day you're like, I'm doubling my damn prices. I don't care.
Well, and that's, you know, we talked about safety net, but that's, I mean, the word foundation, right? We're all trying to build our own house, but what if you could very quickly, aka fast foundations, what if you could build a foundation to your home very quickly, to your business, let's say, right, in this case, and that way you always have this foundational knowledge, skill, friend group, peer group to fall back on, aka the foundation. How quickly can we build that foundation for you so that when you fail, worst case scenario, you fall back on those foundational skills and you can literally do anything with that.
I totally agree. And I know that we've clearly mentioned Fast Foundations throughout this episode, and folks now know, like, they know the name of your mastermind, but where can they find out more information about it and when it will be launching again? You guys have a website, Instagram, share those with us.
Absolutely. So easiest is fastfoundations.com. That's where we put everything. We do cohorts, 2 cohorts a year. And so depending on when you're listening to this, just hit the Fast Foundations landing page and it'll say, here's the next event, here's the next cohort, here's how to sign up. We also have an online community that you can join anytime, and you'll find that information on fastfoundations.com. You can follow us on Instagram and see, you know, images and stories from our most recent events, testimonials from other people, and also our own Fast Foundations podcast, where we interview people like you, Shannon, on, you know, who've been in Fast Foundations and share their stories. And then finally, we have a text list. If you want to just chat with us, ask questions, learn more, you want us to send you direct links to sign up, all that kind of stuff. you can just text the word FAST, FAST, to 310-496-3389. That's text the word FAST to 310-496-3389.
Perfect. So many different ways to find out more information, guys. I'm so excited that you guys came on and got to talk about this. I owe so much to the experience in Fast Foundations, and I'm so happy I met the both of you. It's why you're here. It's why I have the podcast. There's so much that was born from it. It's the fertilizer in the soil where like my business grew, and I'm ever grateful for what that has given me and others and other business owners. So thank you for sharing all that with us today and being on the show.
Thanks, Shannon. Thanks for having us. And the only other thing I wanted to add is we get friends from masterminds, and we get friends like you that end up being lifelong buddies that we can grow our businesses together. And, if anyone's on the fence of joining a mastermind, that's always my back end why. I've met so many great people like you, like Jim, in Fast Foundations and in other masterminds that I legitimately would not have met had I not joined a mastermind.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for having us. Proud to call you and Jim a friend now after all this.
I appreciate that so much. Thanks, guys. And we'll see you very soon.